Hi, and welcome back to my review of Giants bobblehead. You know, the number one question I get when I check my email, look at my Facebook account, is basically the question from most collectors is, how do I know what anything is worth? And one of the things you can do is, if you are looking for the one you want, you can always check on eBay to check out what prices are going for on various items. The one thing you can do is just kind of take a look at the pricing for some of these things. But know that one thing about eBay, it's not exactly a great way to know what things are actually worth, because this is just what the seller wants the item to be for. It's the asking price. Things that are asking price are not necessarily what things are worth, like this guy. There's always, I think for a couple years now, this guy's been selling the same Barry Bonds super rare bobblehead, number 73 of 3,500 of them, and he lists it as, you know, he wants $500 for it, and it is allegedly rare. Well, you know what? When there's 3,500 or something, it's not really rare. And the thing is, this guy's been asking for $500 for years. I guarantee he's not selling it. A better way to understand how much things are actually worth on eBay, to actually check for value, is to go into the option menu under, not that one, under what they call completed listings. If you turn on the area for completed listings on eBay, you actually get a listing of what the transactions are going for. This is what the actual price of the item is, and a lot of them are just not selling. These are Barry Bonds. A lot of this stuff is just not selling. Part of it is there's way too many Barry Bonds things on the market. There's also the fact that you know, there's just not a lot of interest right now, except for the reunion set that just came out. A lot of his older stuff, you see the little red marks, meaning the asking price was just not met for a lot of these things. And that's just the way it is. I think that's a great way to take a look and do a little bit of homework on your item before you go out there and either establish a price for if you're trying to sell it, or if you're looking for an item to acquire, you can check the previous history of that to see what things are actually worth. Ultimately, what things are actually worth are what the buyer and the seller are willing to agree on a price. There isn't ever a situation where there are more buyers than sellers or more sellers than buyers. The number of buyers and sellers are actually exactly the same, because there has to be one in every transaction. What changes is what they value the worth of that item to be, and there are various things that you can kind of just think about before you do it. One of them is, obviously, the best case scenario if you're trying to buy or sell anything is if you've got an item here like this Buster Posey bobblehead, where it's a combination of everything going for it, and the fact that it's a popular player that's doing well right now. There were, I think, 20,000 of these made, but they're all commanding a pretty good price because everyone wants one. It's still somewhat hard to get because everyone wants one. There isn't a lot that's being sold, right? So that's kind of what you want, is a popular player that's somewhat easy to get, and you're going to get good value for it, and his price is going to hold steady for years. It's a good investment. I mean, this is something worth getting, and more than likely this is really easy to try to get an idea of what the pricing on, because there's going to be a lot of transactions for you to follow. Some of the harder ones, a lot of the bobbleheads that we get are like this F-Felt that just came out Thursday. It's a limited edition of a bullpen player who has already been on the team since 2009, but ultimately, long term, he might not be remembered quite so much, because he is a reliever after all. But you'll see over time that it may be a little more difficult to price this guy out. But again, it is limited edition and it is somewhat rare, but you got to understand that rarity in and of itself doesn't really mean a lot, right? Think about this. One of the biggest questions I have is actually Russ Ortiz. Everyone who has a 2002 bobblehead set is out there right now trying to get the rest of the 2002 set. They're trying to find the original Kirk Reeder Woody. They're trying to find Russ Ortiz, Benito Santiago, what's his name, Jason Smith, as well as this guy over here, Sushi Shinjo, the only one that I know of that was sold that year in the Forever Collectibles at the dugout stores. Someone actually gave this to me. But you take a look at this guy. The group, I have the rewards card version, but there's also a group leader version. And part of it is everyone's always thinking, oh, this must be really expensive because it's rare, or they didn't make a lot of them, especially the group leader one. But the thing is, price is not based purely from the seller's perspective or their perception of rarity. Rarity in and of itself doesn't assign value. Like, here, I'll show you. See this? This is a piece of pocket lint that I just pulled out of my pocket. It is Slide Ball's pocket lint. Right there? This is the only pocket lint that is out there. It's super rare. Does this make it worth $1 million just because I want $1 million for it? No, because there's no demand for it. And yet a lot of people out there have this delusion that just because you have something that's somewhat rare, it must be worth a lot. It is not, because this is garbage, and a lot of times these bobbleheads are out there where people are asking for $500. They're also garbage. They're deluding themselves, because ultimately the sale will only occur when the buyer feels comfortable with the sacrifice of cash to get the item that they need. This guy, for years it was sold for maybe in the $40, $60 range, and recently it's gone up there to the $80, $90 range, which I think is just insane. But a lot of people was just renewed interest in the old bobbleheads, but without a lot of reason to. So you gotta have to think about it as you're acquiring things. Is this thing really worth waiting for, especially the ones that are out there that are old? If you've already waited 8 years to get this guy, why didn't you wait another 6 months when the hype dies down and you can get it at a lower price when everyone else is off watching football? The other thing that's kind of funny out there is I've seen a lot of people say that this thing must be worth a lot of money because it's a combination of old and rare. Well, there are a lot of things in the world that are old and rare, but bobbleheads are not wine. They don't age and get better with just sitting around. In actuality, a lot of times is the more age happens and the more rare the thing is, the less likely people want to actually collect it, especially if you're a recent Giants fan, maybe a bandwagon fan who's only been following the team ever since we've had Buster Posey. If you have no idea who Tsuyoshi Shinjo was and what he did for the team in 2002, this may not be of any interest to you. And so just to say that, it's rare, only 1,000 of them were made, and it's 10 years old, therefore I want $200 for it. You're also deluding yourselves, and as a buyer, you also have to be careful of that. Don't fall in a trap of thinking that just because something is rare or old, it must somehow be more valuable. And it's not, because if the demand isn't there and not a lot of people actually want it, there's no reason to be going out there charging $200 or even $100 for a Tsuyoshi Shinjo, a bobblehead, for a guy who only played for 1 year with the Giants. And that's really my pet peeve, is a lot of sellers out there trying to take advantage of other people because they think that things are rare. I mean, part of it was like the classic one. What I don't have is the 2010 World Series Madison Bumgarner bobblehead, of which I think they only made about 144 of them. And people are claiming that it's rare, and yet everyone I know has one. It's not rare if everyone has one, right? And so some of these items where there's 3,000 of them and they're calling them a limited edition run, well, yeah, you have one listed for eBay, but there's also, like, for asphalt, probably close to another 3,000 of them out there that are just floating around. You probably may see them garage sales, Craigslist. They're not really rare. So you got to do a little bit of your homework, and a lot of that goes into taking a look at the history of what things are actually selling for on eBay, as well as going on Craigslist and taking a look at the history of what things are being negotiated for. I think Craigslist is actually a better bet for a lot of these places because you can kind of negotiate on price and use some other things as comparison. Although I will warn you that one thing that I noticed that actually happened to someone I know is the fact that they met someone on Craigslist and they were about to make a transaction, and then the guy went back and pointed out that some obscure bobblehead on eBay was selling for say this guy $500 or whatever, and then they were using it as a basis for negotiating a price for the item. And so instead of paying $500, which they assumed that was the going value for this bobblehead, the guy paid like $200 or something for it. I think long term, ultimately they realized that the guy who he was negotiating with on eBay, on Craigslist, is the same guy who posted the ad on eBay as a marking point for establishing price. Because a lot of these items, like say Russ Ortiz bobblehead that was given away for free back in 2002, I believe, if you joined the Rewards Club, it's very hard to establish price on an item that was, for the most part, free. And so if there is no guidance, you use eBay as a guidance, and as a seller, that's kind of a scummy thing to do, to artificially have an asking price of $300 so that you can negotiate down to $200 later and use your own ad that you posted as a bargaining chip. It's kind of a bogus thing to do, but I've seen it happen to a buddy of mine. It is not nice, but as a buyer, it's something that you should be aware of don't just going out there and taking a look at the asking price of something. It's not the asking price that you should be worried about. It's the transaction price of what other people are actually physically paying for. You have a history of value transaction happening. As a seller, you got to kind of be aware of that. You really want to get rid of things and offer a fair value. You know, it's good to do a little bit of history as well, do a little bit of homework and see what things are going for, so you are able to get rid of your items at a fair value, as well as you know, get everything it's worth. Like, I wouldn't sell Buster Posey for $10. It's just crazy. I want every dollar I want. At the same time, I don't want to really tick off my sellers, because I want them coming back as repeat buyers to continue to send me money for the things I have. So, in any case, that's my little spiel on what things are worth. Go out there and do your homework, check eBay, check Craigslist, and if you do have questions, please, as always, email me, find me on Facebook, and I'll always happy to help. Thanks for watching. Go Giants. Bye.